Okay, this is going to be my second video in relation to Kundalini. Um, just going to go over a couple different things. First, I'll start talking off by going into the notion of seeking experiences. Um, we talk about self-development. Self-development is very different than seeking an experience. Originally, I had went into the whole idea of meditation merely for the purposes of stress relief. I do have high blood pressure, so I have heard that it does help with that. So far, I haven't seen any really positive results as opposed to in relation to that. But of course, I haven't taken my blood pressure after doing that either. But I do feel more relaxed. Maybe it does really work long term. I'm not sure that it really does have a long-lasting effect as far as blood pressure goes. Of course, I'm not a doctor, and I really don't have the ability to talk about that too much, so I'll just go into seeking experiences at this point. So in relation to that, when one decides to, take certain substances, I'm sure you may have heard of this root that they take out in Peru and Brazil and Southern America. They take that for their purposes of spiritual purposes. Some would rather just take these things for just the purpose of having an experience. Smoking marijuana or taking cocaine or whatever the case may be, just maybe they're seeking a rush and they're not really looking for any spiritual outcome of any sorts. That may only be a secondary goal for them, but in seeking experiences, we miss the point, which really should be self-development. But I can't speak for you as to what your aim might be in considering those different ideas of certain substances or different practices. So the next thing we'll talk about is, in my first video I discussed passing through the threshold. Essentially, you're moving from the throat chakra into the third eye, or the pineal gland, and the crown chakra. So essentially, once you pass from the throat chakra and you release energy up into the higher portions of your brain, essentially, things begin to become quite intense. People talk about entities that they encounter when they pass the threshold. This is noted in Hinduism. In Krishnamurti's book, The Star of the East, he talks about this briefly, or whomever wrote the book, rather, I should say, because it's a biography about Krishnamurti. It's not an autobiography. He didn't write it himself. The name of the book is called, I believe, The Star in the East. And in that book, they talk about him or other people having the experience of encountering entities when practicing Kundalini. They may actually physically see, or visually see, I should say, these entities. They may appear as whatever they're going to appear as. I don't know. I haven't experienced that myself. I have, however, experienced a feeling that I was being attacked by something. I don't know. I didn't see anything per se, but I did feel things happening at that time. But I think it's more what it really, in my opinion, from my subjective view, it must be that these things are more or less our own fears projecting onto ourselves at that particular time. So essentially we're dealing with our own fears. Kundalini is thought of as a means to an end of suffering. And I will tell you that I must say it did completely change the way I view the world, and it did, in a sense, really begin to end suffering. It does have the ability to rewire your brain. So once you've rewired your brain, certain things may, in fact, take place. May begin to think a different way, act a different way. It does seem to increase intelligence. I will say that before I started Kundalini, I had lots of issues with stress, depression. Originally, I just started meditating, like I said, for stress relief purposes. in the long run, after having my Kundalini experience, things changed completely. I didn't really worry about things so much anymore. Essentially, there's a sort of division where if I really can't, there's two certain things that I've noticed. The first thing being, there's things that you really can't do anything about, and you don't have the power to change. So there's no sense in worrying about those things. The other thing would be that there are things you can change, but you shouldn't worry about them because, you do have the power to change them. So you must make efforts to change those things, but at the same time, you can't stress yourself out, about not being able to get it done. And you just can't stress out about those things too much, otherwise it'll eat you alive, quite frankly. So, also, in relation to what Krishnamurti said, going back to that, in that book, well, he really didn't say that, but in that book it talks about the entities and madness. You can go mad, as I talked about in my first video, I explained that to you. And there is quite a connection between Jewish mysticism and Hindu mysticism, or Buddhism, in relation to Kundalini. Now, Jewish mysticism talks about Kundalini in a much different way. In fact, it really doesn't talk about Kundalini at all. It talks about something called the Merkaba. In fourth way, in one of Gurdjieff's books, Meetings with Remarkable Men, he discusses the book called the Merkavat, which seems to be in relation to Judaism, ancient Jewish mysticism. And after reading that book, he had sought out the Sarmoon Brotherhood, which is a Sufi order, essentially. But that's a story for another time. In any case, the connection between Jewish mysticism and Eastern mysticism is, there's quite a surprising connection there, actually. The Merkaba, a sacred geometric image. I recommend you take the time to look that up if you're not familiar with it. In Jewish mysticism, they would meditate over the Merkaba and the 7 chambers of heaven, which are referred to as Hekalat. It's spelled Hekalot. I'm sure I just completely mispronounced that, but it's referred to as the 7 chambers of heaven. And the way I think about that is the 7 chakras, or even in talking about the Book of Revelations, perhaps the 7 seals. So if you actually read the Book of Revelations, that particular section discusses the different seals, and rather than external revelation, it may be in fact that it is internal revelation in regards to personal experience. Seeking God, people think that may be an external experience, that God is external as opposed to internal. Maybe perhaps we miss the notion that rather we are God and He's viewing the world through our eyes, and we're having the experience for Him, as Him, with Him. Really, in a sense, maybe no separation whatsoever. And when you begin to experience different states of consciousness, you begin to see that awareness is quite an interesting, there's many different levels of that, and you notice that there really is less and less separation as you go further and further into the different states. Then there's, like I said, Jewish mysticism, getting back to that notion of Hekalat, the 7 chambers. People meditate on those, and the Merkaba, the Jewish mystics would, and they would also experience madness, similarly to Hinduism, Buddhism, all that Eastern mysticism in relation to Kundalini. So I got to think, like I said, all those things are pretty much similar and related very closely. I have done further research on this, and I'll go more into this in another video, but that's quite a bit of information there already. So with that being said, I'm going to stop it here, and I'll give you guys more the next time. All right, bye.